Hello, everybody. Let's give this a few more seconds to get everybody in. See, a few more in the waiting room. So while we're waiting, letting everybody else in, I want to say hello and welcome to our 6th and final part of this Women's Suffrage Centennial series. Thank you once again for joining us. So helping me today, I've got Paula helping with the waiting room, letting people in, but we also have members of 5-9 based in Reno, Nevada, helping us out today. So we have troop leader Ulrika Goldstein or Goldstein. Goldstein. We have Ciara, I can't say your name correctly.
Ciara Goldstein.
Ciara Goldstein. We have Anna Zueva. And I'm missing somebody. Where did she go?
Caitlin.
Caitlin. They're going to help with the presentation. They're going to help us with the chat log. Okay, so I'm wondering, I know I totally forgot to ask any of our presenting troop today if one of them would like to lead us in the Girl Scout Promise. Any of you feel comfortable doing that, or do you want me to do that?
I mean, I can.
Okay, that would be great. And don't forget to put your hand up. Okay, and everyone's gonna repeat after you. We just can't hear them, but they're doing it.
On my honor, I will try to serve God and my country, to help people at all times, and to live by the Girl Scout outlaw.
Okay, and guess what? Guess what's next? I had to put in the law also.
Caitlin, you want to jump in and do it? Yeah.
Do we need to unmute her? I've lost her.
All right.
Can you find her? We can unmute her.
I think we lost her. I think
she's still here.
Oh,
she's still here.
Here, let me.
She's muted. So. Yeah.
I mean, if not, I can do it too. I just thought maybe the girls would appreciate hearing some other Girl Scouts.
Hi, I'm unmuted.
Okay.
Go for it, Caitlin.
I will do my best to be honest and fair, friendly and helpful, considerate and caring, courageous and strong, and responsible for what I say and do. And to respect myself and others, respect authority, use resources wisely, make the world a better place, and be a sister to every Girl Scout.
Nice.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that part. So these girls were just now put on the spot and they did wonderfully. The next minute or two, and then I'm going to hand it over to them. Next slide. I'm going to kind of go over. So I took our internet safety pledge and I kind of abridged it just for this series. And I'd just like to remind you, this series, we are recording this, because we're going to post these recordings on our website. The chat log is also, it gets recorded while we're recording this along with the audio. So we please ask that you keep your chats to the presentation at hand. So I'm going to read this out loud, one moment. And I'm just going to ask that once you read it, everybody agrees that either give me the thumbs up sign or like the clapping sign. I will practice online etiquette, good manners, at all times, when online, by not spamming others, not bullying or tolerating bullying, and always telling a trusted adult if I witness bullying, not using bad language. I will be guided by the Girl Scout Promise and law in all that I do online. So please give me a thumbs up or a hand clap to say, I can do that. I'm going to do that during this. Thank you. And give me one moment to, all right, I don't know how to get that there. Okay. Next thing. Uh-oh. Hold on. Hold on. Doesn't want to. Hello, computer. You're fine. There we go. Yay. So this is our last day. This is the last day to register for our Suffrage Centennial March, which is not this Saturday, but next Saturday. I believe on the last email I sent, I included details about it. But if you haven't signed up yet and you want to be part of it, please get your adult to register for you. Thank you. Next thing. And just one more time, I know this is from a few sessions ago, just to look at the clothes they're wearing and look at the signs, just to give you an idea of what they wore and how things looked back then. Oh, hold on, hello. You're fine, my computer. Hello, computer. There we go. Like I said, this is just one more review of kind of how they dressed, what they looked like. And I just love the hats. I think that's why I chose this picture. Let's see. Okay, so this is the final part of this series. So many of you have already done this survey. You've given me your form stack, and thank you for doing that. And it's really great to see. I've gotten things from California and Florida and Michigan and here and there. You are really all over the place, and I think that is so cool. So if you haven't yet filled this out, please do, because that's the only way you're going to get a patch for this. It makes it a lot easier for me to track if I just have it all in one easy to read place. I'm going on vacation at the end of the month, which means I want to have these patches out before I go on vacation. So please fill out that form soon. Let's see, next thing. So before I hand it off to Troop 659, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone for attending. This is the first time we've ever tried anything like this. Not only is it virtual, but it's a series. And this has been a completely all new everything experience. And we've learned a lot. And I've tried, every time we go along, I try to improve from one part to the next. Okay, so now, without further ado, I've got a Girl Scout troop and their leader on to take over the next part of part 6, Women's Rights Movement and Civil Disobedience. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So.
All right.
All right.
All right, girls, we are ready to go. I'm going to switch over to my screen.
Oh, that's right. You can do that. Cool. Please do.
What would you do if your parents told you to stop talking to a friend, but you knew it was wrong? What would you do if a teacher had said someone had cheated, but you knew they were innocent? What would you do if half a population wasn't allowed to vote?
Civil disobedience is the answer for many humans facing acts of injustice such as these. Civil disobedience is an act of refusing to do something you know is wrong, even if the government or other people in power tell you to do. Civil disobedience is not a single act, it is a habit of standing up to those in power when you believe them to be wrong. If a parent didn't allow you to speak to a friend, you could debate why you should be allowed to. If a teacher incorrectly accused someone of cheating, you could calmly present evidence to prove the person innocent. Yet if half a population couldn't vote, these options would not be enough to change the situation. Before August 18, 1920, women in the United States could not vote, and it required tireless acts of civil disobedience to change the minds of those in power and solidify their rights. In 1848, the first Women's Rights Convention was held between females who understood that if they stood around and did nothing, nothing would ever change. This first movement was led by women such as Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Stanton, and other suffragists. For these women, civil disobedience meant organizing others to stand up for their rights, and for some people, this meant signing petitions and lobbying men in power.
Around the turn of the century, more and more women joined the fight for equality. These women were no longer afraid of the power men held in their society, since their resolve to create a better world would never waver. They began organizing marches and protests to stand up to a government that devalued them. These women began to demand more rights. The right to vote. The rights to protection against men who wish them harm. The rights of reproductive freedoms. The rights of safety in the workplace. And finally, the rights of equality. For these reasons, the women would not back down until their rights were secured. For the most part, each act of civil disobedience was merely a peaceful protest, yet women were still arrested and held in jails for refusing to be treated as less than a man.
Today it seems obvious that both women and men should be allowed to vote. To some of us, it may seem even crazy that women were ever forbidden from filling out a ballot. But for these women, they fought to achieve everything they wanted to see accomplished. On March 3rd, 1913, over 5,000 men and women in support of the women's suffrage paraded in front of the White House to show they would not stop until their voices were heard. In this parade, some women were even hurt by those who did not believe in their rights. The march continued through the end of the day, even though 100 women were hospitalized due to injuries. The battle did not stop for another 7 years until the ratification of the 19th Amendment. Finally, after years of disobeying the law to acquire needed rights, the 19th Amendment was passed, a victory celebrated by many nationwide. The document stated that the right to vote does not discriminate based on gender. But even with this new amendment, not all women could vote. In 1870, after the Civil War and countless acts of civil disobedience, the 15th Amendment guaranteed non-Caucasian males the right to vote. Sadly, this right did not apply to women. The application did not change after the 19th Amendment, and it was not until 1965, when the Voting Rights Act was passed, that women of other races were allowed to play a role in the American election of public officials. Many believed the Voter Rights Act was the greatest progress for voting rights since all U.S. citizens, regardless of ethnicity or gender, could vote in elections. However, the fight did not stop then. Even after changing the Constitution and laws passed by the legislature, numerous states created their own laws in an attempt to restrict the right to vote.
There were many challenges for women who chose to vote even after the government made it legal. In 1920, after the 19th Amendment was passed, a few states decided not to allow women the right to vote in that year's elections by utilizing excuses and technicalities. Also, in 1920, some African American women attempted to vote in the election, advocating for their rights. Sadly, by creating discriminatory laws, many states across the nation prevented their voices from being heard.
Civil disobedience in 1920 is remembered for the marches at the Capitol, but it is not just the actions that make it an act of civil disobedience. Just 2 months ago, a group of protesters stood outside a church in protest of the government and in support of Black Lives Matter. These people are not an example of civil disobedience because even though they were protesting the government, they also had requested and received a permit to be in the space and were acting within the boundaries of the law. This recent act and the ones in 1920 were both protests and marches, but that does not make them both acts of civil disobedience. In 1776, a man named Thomas Paine wrote a book named Common Sense that informed others about the injustices of the British government, which was an act of civil disobedience because he chose to stand up, even though his actions were not as active as a march or a protest. In modern-day America, men and women share equality in voting from a legal perspective, yet divisions are still present within our society. In early July, the Supreme Court voted against allowing the state of Alabama to expand mail-in voting to prevent people in more rural and impoverished areas from voting during this pandemic. With our government making choices such as this, there is still room for civil disobedience in our society. The act of civil disobedience can be big, like the Black Lives Matter protests across the country, or small, like sending a letter to your representatives. Every one of us has the choice to stand up to people in power when poor decisions are made. This is civil disobedience, and it can cause the change you want to see in the world.
Civil disobedience is an act of opposition backed with intention. Without purpose and motivation, acts of civil disobedience can be labeled as unneeded defiance. For example, if a child refuses to clean their room, the gesture can be seen as rude and disrespectful. Yet, if the child didn't clean his room to protest the rules his parents gave them, the act holds a whole new meaning. In life, humans make choices and take actions, both good and bad. But what matters most of all is the intention. When committing acts of civil disobedience, it is crucial to have a purpose behind each action. Remember, as Gary Kukoff stated, if your intention is to give, you will not be concerned with how your actions are perceived.